Welcome to Thaddaus Dawson Speaks, where liberation meets valuation and soul meets soil. This week, 10K Black Appraisers will travel to Washington, D.C. for the historic Black Money Matters Symposium, sponsored by the Financial Services Innovation Coalition and the Southern Christian Leadership's Global Policy Initiative. Today, we're joined by two dynamic voices shaping our future, Kimble of FSIC and Martin Mason of Rapid Runs Transportation. Stay with us. The conversation begins now.
Reconcile the value, keep the story true. Land worth more than what they gave to you. Trillions moving, don't get left behind. Preserve the well, protect what's mine.
Hi, welcome to our third installment of Thaddaus Dawson Speaks, where our goal is liberation through valuation, where soul meets soil. Today we have two amazing guests, Mr. Kimble from FSIC and Mr. Martin Mason from Rapid Run Transportation. I'm just thankful and grateful for these two individuals. Kevin I've been knowing for about 15 years. Kevin is a lobbyist. He's an attorney. We did a lot of work with the Black Bankers Association years ago, and it's morphed into a long-lasting friendship and relationship. Martin is one of my heroes and a true Iron Man. Kevin drags us all around the country talking about policy and why it's important. So today we will be discussing Kevin's sixth summit, Black Money Matters, that he'll be hosting in Washington, D.C. this week at the Congressional Black Caucus. And there'll be a number of speakers that'll be coming in from around the country, various thought leaders, and talk about wealth, the wealth disparity, government contracting, strategy, and why policy is so important. Kevin has been in really embarking on me for the last several years on how important policy is. And I'm not political, but I'm listening and definitely seeing the importance of it. So without further ado, I'd like to get into our program and welcome Mr. Kimble and Mr. Martin Mason. Welcome,
thank you, Thaddaus. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
So I'm going to start off with you, Kevin, and talk about FSIC, GPI, your work as a political strategist, the think tank that you and Brady have, and basically how you have been required to build straw for lack of a better effort. There's all kind of think tanks out there that are extremely well funded, from the Heritage Foundation to Brookings. These organizations have millions and millions of dollars, yet still your organization is run like a volunteer firefighting department, and it's always trying to put out 5-alarm fires with just passing the bucket. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So we started out, I was a banking financial services lobbyist for most of my career. So I worked on the BIF and SAFE, the mergers of the bank insurance funds. I helped create the non-bank charter at OCC for some clients. And I was actually doing the work of trying to help underserved people get access to credit after the crisis, the 2008 crisis. And as I was traveling around the country trying to get people to take this charter, use this charter, I realized that for Black people particularly, for all people, but for Black people particularly, the biggest problem wasn't access to credit. It was lack of wealth and income, especially lack of income. And so that led me down this whole path. And I realized just how bad the policies had been, all the things we've not taken advantage of. So FSIC was my flagship organization. It's like we do all things economic related. If you go to the website, you see we have task forces on real estate, on real estate values, antitrust, you just name healthcare. We cover the gambit because Black people are just so left out of all these conversations. Then, met Dr. Steele and some other people when he was president of SCLC about 10 years ago, and they did not have a policy arm. So we created the what we'll call SCLC, Southern Christian Leadership Global Policy Initiative, to do using Keynesian philosophy, working on access to policy and policy influence and elected official influence through that process, because Dr. Steele had been a former state senator. So we did that, and then we created another group focused a lot on tech called Partnership for Empowerment and Inclusion and Empowerment, or Innovation Empowerment, which was our opportunity to work on stuff like artificial intelligence, et cetera. And from that, we just kept building this platform because we realized that people in the country, especially African Americans, had no idea about what was going on. Like you mentioned, we'll get into some of this. Like Martin will tell you his journey in this space, which I think is apropos of most people we run into, where just you don't realize how bad things are until you talk about it. And if you don't mind me, I'd like to level set for a second. We talk about how important policy is. So right now, there's this effort. The Republicans are carving up all these districts, getting rid of Black members of Congress, right? I think you guys most people have heard this story. Maybe some, maybe haven't, but a lot of places you have. And it reminded me that, like, and Thaddaus, you will remember this. Martin, you've heard me say this a lot of times too, but Thaddaus was at the inception of this conversation about 7-8 years ago. We started telling Black members of Congress they needed to vote against the debt ceiling and vote against funding the government until they got some relief on voting rights, right? So, and for instance, the voting rights Title II, the pre-clearance, and Title V or Section 5 were all gutted by the Supreme Court. And so that was going to come back to haunt Black people. So you shoot forward 7 years. Now all these seats are being eradicated. Members of Congress are losing their seats, being carved out of congressional districts. And had they had the foresight when we were telling them this, they could have gotten language in to protect their districts, and they never did. So as a consequence of us not understanding policy as a group and not understanding the importance of these things, we abdicated the fight and let other people decide what was important in these votes. So
Kevin, what to your point, and I know we go back and forth about this. A lot of people are angry at the current administration for the things that they're doing, but they are constantly playing offense. Yeah. And as you stated, the Democrats had an opportunity and they weren't concerned, and they're constantly playing defense, and everything is really reactionary. So when people ask me, am I mad at the current administration? No, I'm not mad at them. Why would I be mad at them when you put in front of them opportunities to do something different under the other Democratic administration? Yeah. I think Black people lose regardless of who's in office, Democrat, Republican, and when Democrats had the opportunity to do something, they didn't do it. So I mean, we have this conversation. At what point, what's going to be opportunistic for Black and brown people? Those opportunities and just don't come by, and it doesn't matter who's in office. The outcome for us.
Martin's going to have, I've obviously talked to Martin quite a bit, so he has a great perspective on this. But what I say to, people that we have to take control of our own politics, right? I mean, the one thing that the people on the other side do very well is they hold their members accountable. So for instance, we are trying to defend these CBC members who are losing their seats or being redistricted. But the truth of the matter is we should be screaming at them for what they failed to do. I mean, they were all worried about how they were going to be viewed by the leadership, et cetera. Now they don't have to worry about that because they won't be in Congress. But they caught me, but they took, having worked with SCLC, but they took all the sacrifice that SCLC and their members made and sort of, got lazy about the process, right? They've the legacy of people who had to think about how to get us the right to vote, shoot forward to the people who took advantage of that, and to see how they've squandered that opportunity is really disheartening. But it's come upon people like you, Thaddaus. I always tell you, like, you got to write. Martin. I said Martin's holding events and sending out emails and videos. I mean, we don't we don't hold our elected officials accountable, and Black elected officials, and we keep waiting for them to do the right things. Often they don't know the right things. Like, you're an expert, right, on real estate values. There's no member of Congress should be writing, especially Black member of Congress, but any member of Congress should writing legislation or thinking about that without calling you for advice, right? So it's incumbent upon us to engage there.
Well, you have been on me about writing and being more vocal, and I have taken up the mantle. But what I'd like to do now, before I continue, is get Mr. Martin Mason on. He is definitely one of my heroes. And let me just give you a little history about Martin. Right now he's sitting, but he is a walking miracle. And as Kevin puts us all to the test, I met Martin 3 or 4 years ago now, when Kevin drugged me to Washington, D.C., a little bit, almost 30 days after having hip replacement surgery for his summit. And I was on a walker, and, I was wearing this big purple heart, thinking I was doing something, being there after 30 days, only to learn that Martin was there like 2 weeks after open heart surgery. I know I'm exaggerating, putting a little yeast on that, but Martin had open heart surgery, and he was there standing, and now he just recently had lung surgery, and he's looking like $1 million. So Martin might be the bionic man. So he's a walking, living miracle, and definitely one of my heroes. So Martin, you jump on in there, please.
Thanks, Thaddaus. Yeah, if I'm not the bionic man, I'm in test. They're testing stuff out on me. That's for sure. It wasn't a heart surgery. It was a heart transplant that I had, and then I had lung cancer, and so I had a lumpectomy a few months ago. But it's interesting when you talk about the heart. I got involved in all of this, like most people, right? I think. At first, I was involved in politics, not to a great degree. I followed politics. I was kind of a junkie. I watched the television a lot. I watched all the cable news. Trump's first time in office. That's when I was waiting for the good stuff to happen, right? And it never did. It just was more bad stuff. But I was involved mentally in the game, and to some degree, I even had my hands in the game. So I would. Occasionally donate to some candidate that moved me for some reason. I would go knock doors. I knocked doors for Kamala Harris, and so I had my head in my hands in it. But I think that at some point for me, I got involved with Kevin. I was having some difficulty with the trucking company. We were trying to get involved in cannabis that legalized in New Jersey. We wanted to try to get a distributorship, and I was having some difficulties, and a friend got me connected to Kevin, and I first started talking to Kevin, and it was for a very self-serving reason. I think, it's human nature, right? I was having problems. I needed some help. I couldn't find a politician to help me, but Kevin was there in Washington, D.C. Maybe he can help. And so Kevin, as a nice guy as he is, he steered me in the right direction, gave me information about what was going on with what I was doing, kind of opened my mind up to things. And eventually we discovered that there was going to be no hope for us with the cannabis. So at that point, I directed the trucking company to government contracting. And I'm excited about government contracting. I spoke with Kevin about it, and he says, "Okay, Martin, all right." And he calls me about a week later, and he says, "Martin, did you read the New Jersey disparity study that came out months ago?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, I sent it to you. Take a look at it and call me back." So I took a look at it, and I realized then what was taking place. African-American businesses account for about 10% of the eligible businesses for government contracting in the state of New Jersey, 10%. But yet we received only 0.14% of the contracts, not even 1%, just 0.2% of the contracts. These government projects funded by taxpayer dollars, minorities collectively about 3% of the contracts, blacks 0.14%.
Martin, can you go over those numbers one more time? And can you assign a dollar value to them?
Well, the dollar value, the dollar value would just floor you, because we're talking about billions of dollars. So keep in mind this. So the minority population in the state of New Jersey is 40%. So theoretically, about 40% of tax dollars or something close to that come from minorities. And I think maybe 12 or 15%. Let's use African Americans, 12 or 15% African Americans. So 12 or 15% of the tax dollars come from African Americans, theoretically. So these government contracts are paid for with tax dollars. So your community pays taxes. Some of those taxes go to this development, and some of your people should be working this development and cycle back those tax dollars that you paid. That's how it should work. Our tax dollars go from our pockets into the pockets of these contractors who get these government contracts, and they are not black. They are not minorities. They are white and they are male. So they get our money, goes in their pockets, and fuels their communities, pays for their kids to go to school, pays for their cars, their homes, their dinners, their breakfast. It's taken from us. So in a way, we're almost like we were when we were sharecroppers, right? So you're asking about the numbers, 0.14%, not even 1 percentage point.
And if you would, I would say this: if you think about it, take $100, say $100, 1% of $100 would be $1. 50 cents, 0.5% would be 50 cents, would be 0.5. A quarter of a percent would be 0.25. We're talking about less than 1 quarter. So we're talking about 14 cents out of every $100. So on $1 billion, it's like $1 million out of $1 billion. Those are black people.
Thank you, Kieran.
But I thought DEI. I thought all of you all were getting rich off of DEI.
Yeah,
that's what they'd like you to believe.
But that's not the case. What about illegal DEI? Isn't that like a thing too?
Yes, me or Aston Martin.
I thought you all were really getting rich, and the playing field was disadvantageous for
white men. Yeah, white men getting creamed in the economics, right? They're just, one of the things we don't do. Again, this is back to our political leaders and back to us. I forget, like someone like Martin. That's what we're talking about. We're in DC this week, this week for CBC. You got to educate, because if when I ask people this question, I ask them all the time, like, what percentage of contracts you think black people get? Inevitably, whether they're white or black, they say about 20 to 30%. I mean, how someone's convinced, I guess because they see every black person play on sports, they think we're everywhere, right? Because they see you on TV every Sunday. But the reality is, no one, that's why they don't want to do these disparity studies. That's why they work so hard to change the narrative or to keep the information, because the information is bad. I've sent you guys both some of these other disparity studies, like on wealth. Like Martin will tell you about New Jersey, but I'll tell you in Boston, African American wealth is $8. White wealth is $240,000. Black wealth is $8. I mean,
basically, you can spend black wealth at McDonald's for breakfast as long as you don't supersize.
As long as you don't get supersized, you can't get a large coffee with that. You cannot get a large coffee. Yeah.
I just, when we talk about these numbers and the lack of awareness, I think that's one thing. But then when I'm looking at all the political discourse at what happens, and we are so disengaged, and it's really not important. And I used to feel the same way, because I felt like we were in a political trick bag. I feel like we're in a no man's land, and now I see it differently. But the other side is so well funded with billionaires. I don't even really think it's about race. I don't think it was ever about race. I think it was about power and power dynamics. And I think that's what what we're witnessing right now in real time, and it's been somewhat eye-opening and contentious for white people to figure out that they're not a part of the bigger picture of the haves as opposed to the have-nots, when the argument has been traditionally shaped and polarizing around color.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Thaddaus, I think maybe you're right, but I think racism is a tool or a mechanism by which they're able to control that economic dynamic, right? They can keep poor white people fooled by saying, look at those people took all your, it's not our fault. They did it, right? So that's.
I think that totally plays into Keevan's theory. And in a capitalistic society, you have to have somebody to blame. and it was DEI. Now is Latino and Hispanic and brown people being arrested wholesale, rights being violated, and supposedly jobs being taken away. But now that they have been taken away, nobody is doing those jobs, and it has a disproportionate impact on all of the areas when it comes to agriculture, when it comes to tariffs. All of these things are really the whole system as we know it is being upended. What do you see for us to be able to move forward and survive? And I know a lot of black folks are just being on the sideline waiting and not involved. And I think that is, again, it's not a offensive strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think in a system, in any system, right? You have to participate, or else you will be, even if win, lose, or draw, you have to participate because that's what the system is. I mean, you can't operate outside the system. Like you and I've talked about this. You actually schooled me on some of this. Like there were 1,200 black. Like we've tried living outside of the system. Coming out of Jim Crow or in Jim Crow, we tried that, but every time we created something, they destroyed it. Just like they destroyed all of our wealth now. I mean, Martin, I think the black wealth disparity in New Jersey is it's like 600,000 for whites and 6,000 for blacks or something like that. I mean, something ridiculous, like maybe 1%. So, in order for the capitalists, capitalism, it's not even capitalism. We don't have a capitalist economy. First, that's a misnomer, right? Capitalism is a system where best ideas win. Corporations run themselves. The government has a very laissez-faire attitude towards what happens. But we basically have a kleptocracy, right? We have a situation. We have a situation where we bail out our business. Like the one thing Trump did that I really liked was that when he gave money to Intel, he took it as an investment and took a 10% stake in the company for the government. That's what, what we have now is where we give corporations money to do business and then we buy all their stuff at full price, right? We let them sell it to us and we don't make them pay any taxes. So that's not a capitalist. If we had a capitalist system, 2/3 of the banks on Wall Street would have been broke. Jamie Dimon would not be a billionaire in a capitalist society because he would have went broke in 2008. So that's one thing we let them call, like we let them criticize communism or whatever, but we basically run a communist economy. But it's basically we just keep giving money to the corporations, whether they're successful or not. So I don't think we can afford to ignore. I mean, we cannot afford to walk away from any of this. I mean, if we're going to live in this country, we have to play in the system that exists. And
if we here, where else can we go? I mean, we didn't come here voluntarily, and we really have nowhere to go. Although there is somewhat of an exodus, we have to figure out strategies in order to live here and live and I don't want to just survive.
Right,
I mean,
right.
we should be able to live and provide strategies for the next generation. But that is going to require conversation. It's going to continue to require sacrifice. And like Martin identified when he started out seeking your help, it was self-serving. I think that was very, very honest. But once he started going down the rabbit hole and looking at the disparities, wow, he felt an obligation to bring some things to light as far as legacy and making opportunities available for the next generation. And that's one of the things that I have been fueled by, as well as I've been able to travel the country and see that the appraisal disparity issue is not just a Black problem. It's a appraisal problem for the Native Americans. It's an appraisal problem for the federal government. And it's a workforce development problem. I mean, if we look at the numbers, and again, that's where I believe our fight is, in data science, evidence-based, data-driven analysis, not the emotional arguments, even though the emotion is there and we know it's there and it exists. We have to be able to articulate it in an objective way backed by data. And I think that is the approach that we need moving forward, because all I'm hearing is a lot of vitriol, a lot of fear, and it's just not a recipe for success.
Well, I disagree with you on that. I mean, the Republicans have made a lot out of anger and fear. I mean, it's like truth is not even an issue. So they dismiss data as fake. So I don't know that, if you read Machiavelli, there's anger and fear are the two most powerful tools in political discourse. So, I mean, we take the data we have, but we've got to spur anger. Like the fact that Black people aren't running around like with their hair on fire is a function, the data is out there, right? But you've got to tie that to their anger and their emotions. Like Martin says, he got mad. That's what happened.
Yeah. If I can add to that, you're exactly right, Kevin. I said, when I found out about Kevin talking about the disparity study, I got angry. And like I said before that, my head and my hands were involved in politics and thinking and numbers and all that stuff. But when Kevin showed me what he showed me, and when I thought it through, and I realized that not only was it nearly impossible for me to get work, not only had I been spending my time, my effort, my money, and my hope chasing something that would never happen, it was done to me on purpose. It was part of their strategy. And what made it even worse than that was the African-American organizations and politicians that I thought would help me never said it. They knew about it, but never said anything about it. So just let me go run them up. That's what was done to me. And that's what made me angry. I was so angry. And Kevin said, so Martin, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? And at that point, that's when my heart entered the fray. I said, I've got to fight this for me and for everybody like me to my last breath. I said, it's the most noble thing I could do with my life. Was fight this fight.
So Martin, when you said you put your heart into it, was that the old heart or the transplanted heart?
That was what. Let me think about this. I think that was the original heart.
Okay, and that's what wore the original heart out.
And then what they put the pre-owned was hitting on all cylinders too. So we took that into the fight. But like I said, when these things hit you home, when they hit you directly, when it's no longer a matter of theory or numbers or any of that, when it emotionally touches you right dead center in the center of your heart, when it lands on your doorstep, when it says, no, you DEI person got fired because of what Trump just did. Now your heart's in it, right? Because it came home to you. It wasn't a matter of thinking of, oh, that's terrible. Oh, good. What's going to happen? No, what happened is you lost your job. What happened is you got suckered into thinking you could get a government contract. That's what happened. And when I got angry, emotional, then I took the step. And then the scale started to fall off my eyes, and I started to see what was really going on. And thanks to Kevin, I was able to do a lot. We started an organization here in New Jersey, the FSIC's New Jersey Policy Initiative, where we started to take action, serious action, because we wanted answers. We had an issue and we wanted answers. I reached out to over 4,000 designated WMBE and DBE certified businesses. And Kevin said, I'm going to tell them what's going on. Kevin said, slow down, Martin. You want to do it in steps, right? So send out a series of emails to these 4,000 people. So the first email was, hey, did you hear about the New Jersey disparity study? Here it is. Take a look at it. Here's what it says. And then the second one was, hey, did you know this same thing happens on the federal level? Because on the federal level, government contracting it's better than the state of New Jersey, 0.14. Theirs is a whole 0.5. Right?
Wow. So that's
on a national level, on a federal level, across this country on a federal level, it's 0.5% of government contracts. That's what we get.
And what percentage of taxes do we pay? I mean, if we could just get some fair representation, well, it's never been fair and it's never going to be fair, but it is incumbent upon us to participate in the process. So I think that is going to be really important as well moving forward.
I'm going to interrupt for 1 second. I'd say this. What you just said, that is, it's never going to be fair. You cannot concede that, right? I mean, that's a defeatist attitude. We have to fight for what's fair, or what we consider fair, or else why isn't 0.14 fair? Or if we're not going to fight for fairness, then why can't we just leave 0.14 alone?
Well, we have to fight, but the fight is exhausting. I mean,
that's why you lose, right? I mean, that's in Europe. That's why members of Congress having their districts destroyed, right? Because they didn't want. It was too hard to fight the debt ceiling to try to make sure they got civil voting rights added, right? I mean, you're absolutely. We can walk away from all this, and that's if that's the answer, then that's the answer. But that's what you're saying. I mean, they know that you're.
But it's not the answer. It's not the answer. They fight for every single thing, and it's a constant fight. And I guess I'm trying to figure out where do they get the fuel and anger to keep fighting when you already got 99% of everything? Where does that come from?
They keep telling you there's another enemy, right? I mean, I tell you, I worked for a member of Congress who was Hispanic when I was chief of staff, and we did immigration. So this is immigration fight now. They've been having this fight every 10 years. They have this argument, and I said and he took my advice. I said, we have to have an enemy. The enemy. So the Republicans have decided Hispanics are the enemy. The immigrants are the enemy. And during that time, the Capitol Hill Club, the Republican club on the Hill, was being refurbished or renovated, and the whole crew was Hispanic. So we went and asked, hey, are you guys legal? And none of them were. There were 6 people of the crew, all illegal. I wanted to call INS and have them do a raid at the Republican Club. But my boss said, we can't do that to those people. None of these things that no one wants to fight. But he did introduce an amendment on the floor saying increasing employer sanctions. So saying, okay, we know if you are an employer who has an Hispanic worker who's illegal, or any illegal worker, you go to jail, right? I mean, we may take them away, but you're going to jail for having illegal contraband, right? He offered the amendment, got 90 votes out of 400. So the Republicans all voted against it, and most of the Democrats. But Nancy Pelosi and Rahm Emanuel both very Machiavellian political thought leaders, voted for the amendment because they understood that if you cannot win a fight when one person has anger and hatred and you're trying to do love, right? We're trying to say, we talk about how great immigrants are for the country, all that stuff, and you just can't win that fight. So it has to be very aggressively, pointing out who the enemies are. I mean, that is something, one of the things we have to demonstrate, and this is that even if white people took everything black people had, it wouldn't be anything for them. I mean, 0.14% is not going to buy anybody a house.
But the illusion is that black folks are cashing in on welfare, SNAP benefits, living luxurious, and nothing could be further from the truth. And even in the valuation space, just there was a recent settlement in Maryland with an appraisal discrimination case where the appraiser won. This was the first time in the Lanham Conley case where the appraiser won. And the whole appraisal profession is acting like it exonerates the profession from years of discriminatory behavior, which I find absolutely laughable. Now, there are several cases that have been settled, but I say all that to say that one case does not make a profession, and it's the same. We take a singular incident and we turn it into the supposed test case or the drumbeat for everything else. Like with the disparity. The disparities are real and exist, and nobody is speaking out or nobody is addressing them. And I guess my frustration, again, it's not with this administration. They're doing what they've always done. It's with our representatives who haven't represented and have acted for better or worse gatekeepers. And we've had all these historical legacy organizations. They've been a failure. I mean, what have they done and where are they today? It's 2025. We still talking about the same stuff from 1960. And as a result, as a matter of fact, my book club, we just read Raisin in the Sun. Lorraine Hansberry's play from 1965 or 64. And the same thing in Raisin in the Sun is everything that I'm working on and talking about today. Legacy, heirs property, gentrification, redlining. It's 60 years later. We still having the same conversation. We don't even have what we had then.
I know, but black home ownership is less than it was in 1960 or something like that.
Pretty much. Definitely, the wealth hasn't changed. I mean, for your Boston numbers at $8, I mean, that's just like, it's almost unbelievable, unfathomable.
Didn't you tell me? Somebody told me, because Martin will talk about the New Jersey one because he pulled the New Jersey one. But in Atlanta, which has the most black millionaires in America, black wealth on average is less than it was before the Emancipation Proclamation.
Oh yes, it's about the same as it was during Emancipation. That was me and you. I was going over the numbers last week, getting ready for a presentation. So yeah, that's absolutely correct. And you would think everybody is talking about how well Atlanta is doing, and Atlanta is failing. When you start talking about affordable housing, we got this big, beautiful project called the Beltline, and one of the unintended consequences is gentrification along the Beltline. There's no longer affordability, and it was, I don't know, it's just one of those things where public policy, again, to your point and how important policy is, when it comes to local politics, we keep getting it wrong as far as stewardship and all the opportunities there are to make housing affordable have been blown. We've got another big project here that is an economic development miracle called the Gulch, where they sold the property to developers. Well, if you look at land trust models, this is another, in my opinion, missed opportunity for the city of Atlanta to get it right, to have participation. They sold the property. What happens in land trust models, you have the ability to have a long-term strategy to benefit the community.
Yeah.
An example, one of the biggest examples that I use in my presentation is China and Hong Kong. They did a 99-year lease, and they just got the property back around 97 or 98. China just got it back. They leased it to Great Britain for 99 years. China has a long-term strategy. And somebody asked Great Britain why they didn't ask for a longer lease term. Well, they thought 99 years was enough. So, but if you look at the hundreds of billions of dollars that property, that Hong Kong was worth over a 99-year period, that's the same sort of long-term planning that municipalities could take in order to generate revenue back to the city and have site control to have contributory value for housing to make it affordable for people.
Yeah. No. I think, because Atlanta's a good example of this too. Once, because Atlanta's a majority Black city, once they started electing Black mayors, they took most of you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this way I understand it, they took most of the economic development out of the hands of the city. Like, so basically there's an entity that gets all the money, the federal money that comes, there's some economic entity that gets all the money and then decides how it gets spent. So it's outside of the city council and the mayor's hands.
It's a different playbook all across the country. Some of them are community land banks. That's what a lot of them happen to. And they start off with good intentions, and then ultimately they get hijacked.
They start off with nominally good intentions. I think people who set these up do it on purpose. They know that they already know where they're going. they just line.
Well, you get the public, but again, it's back to what you said as far as policy and making sure that people are active in it and in shaping it and having a long-term perspective and everybody not being self-serving. As James Brown used to say, we sell out for chicken change. And that is, again, one of the frustrations in the space and what we need to do a better job of. But
so Martin, we did an event with Martin down there, and there's this one guy who came up to us about contracting. I'll let you tell the story, Martin, because it's hilarious. But the guy with the chemical cleaning guy.
Yeah. So we had this meeting, and we reached out to businesses the point of the meeting was to make them aware of the fact that government contracting, we were getting 0.14% of the contracts. That was the thrust of the meeting. So he comes in, and again, like most people, and I wasn't mad at him. He was it was self-interest that brought him there. He wanted to see if he could make some contacts and get his product sold to the government. Like, that's what his goal was. So after we go over the meeting and give all the numbers and the reality, the fact that you are not going to get a contract. Right. You are not going to get a contract. After all that, he's still concerned with whether his paperwork was right and what he needed to do to be able to get a contract. So it's like he didn't even hear us. Yeah. And it's just amazing, but talking about what you were talking about, Thaddaus, to me, doing this after a while, and I said over time, my knowledge becomes, or I see more and I understand more thanks to Kevin and FSIC. I'm learning more, and also when I present myself to these politicians in New Jersey, I'm a person of substance, right? I have something behind me. I have Kevin and his organization behind me, and they're telling me things about, what's going on and what we need to present. So I'm different, I guess. But here's what I see. I see that there's a through line to our existence in America. And that through line is every day is this fight. We have been at war every single day, fighting for our lives, fighting for our existence, fighting for recognition. It's never been a day when we haven't been at war here in America, Black people. And if we're waiting for the day that they lay their guns down, that will never happen. That's what we know. But here's the good news. We can win this fight. I've seen it. I've experienced it. I've done some things, myself, with no help other than Kevin directing me, with money out of my own pocket. We've put proposals in front of the politicians here in New Jersey, and we've gotten traction. We've called them out on the carpet, and we've gotten answers. And that's with just me. So here's the thing. If every Black person participates, if every Black person is involved, if every Black person puts up some money at the very least, hey, you don't have to put your heart in it like I did, or you did, Thaddaus, or any of us activists did. You don't have to go that far. You don't even have to put your hands in it, right? So when I send out a letter, I have maybe 1,500 businesses that read my information, that stay in touch. So if I want to write a letter and I need signatures and I ask, out of those 1,500 people, I'll be lucky if I get 15 or 20 who will just sign outright. And if I get on the phone and start calling, the last letter I sent, I started calling, and I got 50 or 60 people to sign on out of 1,500. Because some of them, I had one person send me, he said, listen, you want me to sign my name to this thing? He says, I haven't read it all. Send it to me. I said, well, I sent it to you. I sent it to you again. Sent it to him again. He writes me back and he says, man, this is incredible. This is beautiful, man. This is some good stuff. He said, I ain't going to sign it, but keep me in the loop.
So Martin, right there, everybody has something that they could contribute. And is it worthwhile?
Hold on. Let me just finish this point. So my point is this. Maybe you may not want to put your heart in it, right? And I use this analogy that I talked to you, Thaddaus, about it, the Alabama riverboat, right? So there's the riverboat with the guy, there's Black people trying to just live life, have a good time on this riverboat, enjoy themselves. And of course, the war is in front of their face. If they just look, they look across, they see the dock, there's a Black security guard trying to do his job, and there's a group of white racists that are going to beat this guy down for just him doing his job. He throws his hat in the air. One brother whose heart was in it, he jumped off that boat and he swam over there. That brother put his heart into it, had no fear, all risk, didn't care. Risked his life for the fight. You don't have to do that. You don't have to put your fight. I'll do it. I know Thaddaus. I know Kevin will do it, but you don't have to do it, right? So maybe you don't even want to put your hands in it. You don't want to sign. I'm not mad at the guy who didn't want to sign. He's afraid. He's caught up. He didn't want to sign. That's okay. Don't sign. Don't put yourself. If you're afraid, don't put yourself out there. But there were other people on that boat. So those people who put their hands in it, they lined up by the exits waiting for that thing to dock so they get out there and get in the fray. Those people had their hands in it. And then some people say, I wouldn't put my hands in it, but I put my head in it, right? I'll record this. So people know this really happened. That's cool. And then there was the other group of people who heard us and they just laughed and it was a joke to them. It was just entertainment, right? So you don't have to be the one to jump off the boat. You don't even have to be the one that lines up by the exits waiting to enter the fray. You don't have to do that either. Maybe you could just be the guy that records. Maybe you could just give $2.50 a month. Maybe you could just do that, right? On a credit card. It'll never keep you from eating a meal. It'll never make you miss your rent payment or your car payment. None of that's going to happen at $2.50 a month. So here's the thing, Thaddaus. There's 20 million working African Americans. If everybody did $250 a month, that's $50 million a month. That'll fight Elon Musk and those guys. That'll fund Kevin and people like Kevin that we need so much. right? $2.50. But here's the beautiful thing about $2.50 a month. It's not the $2.50 a month, because people, I would ask people in your circle of influence, anyone that you know, ask them to do the same thing and tell them why. Because we are in a fight every day of our existence, and you need to participate some way. And $2.50 ain't gonna make nobody rich or take no skin off your back. And $2.50, you sign up to do a recurring $2.50 a month, and I guarantee you'll go to bed feeling better tonight, and you'll get up feeling better tomorrow. And those things you see on TV, at least you'll know we are presenting an effort to make a fight. So that's what I say. There's good news, and the fight is not necessarily with them. The fight is internal first. We need to organize, have a strategy. What's our strategy for today, tomorrow? One last thing. I live by a very prestigious private school, and I see this little white guy walking, and I went to a private school. I see a little white guy walking, and he's got on khaki pants, white shirt. He's got his book bag, and he's walking across this viaduct, and I'm driving over the viaduct, and I look at him, and it hits me. I said, this little boy is walking down the street thinking about what he's going to do when he takes over the world. He's thinking about the people who he's not even thinking about us, because his foot's on our neck. And he knows that. It's his world. It's his world. And we see what Donald Trump has done now, what it's going to be like when he's in charge. And here's what got to me. I said, what are we doing to prepare that little black kid to fight this guy? What tools are we giving him? What are we showing him about how to move in life? That's what got to me. What are we doing? So anyway, that's all I got for you.
Well, I know Kevin is putting on his 6th summit. If you could talk about that a little bit, Kevin. I know it'll be this Thursday in Washington, D.C. At the Congressional Black Caucus. So go ahead and talk about that a little bit before we close out.
Sure. No, thanks. So basically, we do 2 events a year. Like, so we do this one in Black Caucus called Black Money Matters, and people like yourself will be there talking. And then we do our Minority Policy Priority Summit in February in DC, and then we do events around the country, as you guys know, because you guys travel to a lot of them, where we try to bring this to the community, because not everyone can come to DC, not everyone has time, so we try to take it local. But so Thursday's event will be, there's like everybody in the room will be someone doing something, because what we found is that there are a lot of people operating in silos, and a lot of people like yourself who are doing stuff. Like, we have this whole policy book that we wrote, and you can make it available. I'll give it to you. You can make it available to your listeners if they want to download it. But what we noticed that there's no one magic solution that is going to solve all of our problems, right? I mean, the reason why there's 1,000 lawsuits against everything we try to do is because it takes a lot to keep us down, right? I mean, it's not easy, so they have to work really hard. They spend a lot of money keeping us down. So what we're trying to do is, one, get everyone to see that they're not the only ones working. Like Martin said, like, there's no, there's a lot of people doing stuff, and so you can find wherever you can find motivation. Like, I'm not as worried about any one policy or argument as I am about people engaging in the conversation and engaging in the activities, like signing the letters, showing up at the events, calling their members of Congress or their other elected officials, like their governor. Like, Martin's done a good job reaching out to people running for governor in New Jersey, trying to make sure they know that we care and that we're not going to just let it pass by their election. We're not going to just give them a pass. Those things are all important. So this is what this event's about, and people like you are experts. I mean, the other thing is, like, the elected officials don't consider us experts, right? We've got what's his name, Brad Anderson, who's doing all this work on government contracting with OSIP. We got Lynn Pingle, who's doing work. I mean, we got some people we got Wendy Muhammad, who's an expert on healthcare and health antitrust. We got all these people, black people, who are doing all this work, and we've put them we've created this platform, and we've got to make sure that people know that, like, when we tell them to vote against the debt ceiling, it's not some random thing. We know what we're talking about. Now, we've got Bill Cunningham, one of the great economists, who's part of our stuff. So that's what a lot of this is going to be about.
And you have an excellent panel with a lot of wealth and resources. The one thing I would like to kind of hone in on what you said is how we are all very well versed and respected in our professions, but even then we still have to fight to be recognized as experts in our field because of our viewpoint on who we advocate for and how we advocate and fight for inclusion. I just recently had to fight for, with my credibility, to be considered an expert when in the real estate appraisal profession, whenever time I speak, somebody has taken something that I said and putting pen to paper and trying to take credit for it before I can even get home, which I find flattering and hilarious, but it is always interesting how someone could try to plagiarize or attempt to plagiarize something that's been time tested, spiritually downloaded, and forged through fire. So I stand on what I stand on, and I try to create a better space for everybody without, really patting myself on the back, but to be able to come together with other progressive thought leaders in their field and them still have to fight for the recognition as experts when it comes to basically the undervaluation of Black folks as a whole in the totality. And if you're speaking about those issues that impact us, then you're considered not as knowledgeable or not as worthy, or you still need to go get validation from a white person in order to be considered an expert.
Yeah, I would say that I always end up, I say this a lot, if this were easy, it'd already be done, right? So, I mean, we wouldn't have 600 years. We would, you know how hard it is to get to $8 net wealth? You know how much work had to go into destroying Black people to get them down to $8 in wealth? I mean, so it's not easy. So it's not easy. They spend a lot more. Like, remember that guy, and because you're from Atlanta, that is when those Black women were giving those scholarships away to Black women, had the $25,000 scholarships they were giving away. It was a Fearless Fund, I think it's called. And that guy Bloom sued them to stop saying it was a discrimination against white people. He's probably spent $2-3 million on a lawsuit to stop Black women from getting $250,000 worth of scholarships. I mean, so it is not. I mean, they work hard at keeping us down. It's not an easy job. They put a lot of. It's a full-time job. Make sure we. So
have what makes? I can't understand that thought pattern or that philosophy. I know somebody asked one of the billionaires one time, "How much is enough?" Yeah. And the response was $1 more.
Whatever, got more, another dollar.
$1 more, but at what cost? What social, what moral cost?
It's whatever it is, it's worth paying. There is no limit. I mean, there is. I mean, that's just it. I mean, literally, these guys sued so Black kids could not have internships at law firms. I mean, we're not talking about partnerships. We're not talking about jobs. We're talking about internships. I mean, there is nothing like it. They spend, their hate is so great of us that they will. There's no amount of money that's too much to spend. Because you think about, how much time you have to spend thinking about ways. Like, I would have never, which is why they're winning, right? I would have never thought to stop Black women from giving Black women scholarships for their businesses. I mean, I would never done, but they spend their time. Like, we had this covered. You know how much time they had to spend just thinking about that idea?
Well, we're gonna. Yeah, I don't want to think about it no more. But I'm gonna end with their hate is so great, and I like to thank both of you all. And I look forward to seeing you all this coming week in DC, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of continued robust conversation. And this won't be the last time or the last interview that we have. Martin, please give my regards to your lovely cousin who runs the trucking company. Kevin, as always, a pleasure. And me and Martin like to thank you for dragging us around the country.
Keep your healthcare paid up, guys, and just make sure you stay healthy.
So thanks again. This is another episode of Thaddaus Dawson Speaks, Liberation Through Valuation, where soul meets soil. And we're going to end on that note. Thank you both. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and I'll see you all in DC this week.
If you'd like to know more about the 10,000 Black Appraisers mission, visit us at 10kba.com or visit our foundation website, 10,000 Appraisers Foundation, at 10kaf.org. The Thaddaus Dawson Speaks program is proud to be a part of the WUTU 88.3 FM radio family, providing the best in community radio. Stay tuned in locally, and until next week, you've been listening to Thaddaus Dawson Speaks, Liberation Through Valuation, where soul meets soil.
Inside the